In a previous video, we discussed customizing UA. We used a simple example of the customer screen. There were some fields we didn't need and some processes we didn't want. We wanted to put emphasis on some fields and we wanted to move some things around. So that video showed you just how quickly and easy that could be done if you had the right permissions. But obviously there are more sophisticated examples and scenarios that companies may need to implement. And for that purpose, we've created the business framework. So the screen you're looking at is not something that the average user of UA sees. This is a tool provided to administrators or whoever folks you want to provide the credentials to. There's no limit. But again, it's typically reserved for folks who are administering the system and who want to implement and memorialize business rules and processes and workflows. So this is the tool that you'll do that with. And it's really a simple to use tool. It gets a little sophisticated in some places, but you don't have to visit those sections if you don't want to. Alternatively, you can go as deep as you want and literally create entirely new modules and other forms of information to augment your base UA installation. So one of the most fundamental concepts of the tool is what we call that of objects. So for example, if you look under the accounts receivable folder, these are the definitions of the objects that are part of the accounts receivable module. So let's just keep using our customer example, something everybody can relate to. And if I extend this down, the first thing you'll see are the different tabs of information for customers. So what I'm going to show you is how these two pieces relate to one another. I'm going to go back to the basic UA software and show you the customer screen. I've got a tab of main information, financial information, and job defaults. So pretty straightforward. You get the idea of how that works. This is what the users see in runtime. If I go back to the framework where that's defined, I see those tabs are here. So if I want to add completely new tabs of information, let's say our goal is we want to store something completely different than UA had before, I could add a new tab of information, and let's just say let's call it My Data, and I'll hit OK. And then on that tab, I want to add some more fields. And let's just say I want to have one field that's going to contain data. It's going to be called my new number. And again, this could be whatever you want it to be. And it's going to be a text character, and it's going to be 50 characters long. I simply create an exit. And that's now part of my system. Now I have a field called my new number. Now there's other properties and so forth that you can set about that particular field over on the right here. Again, it's just checkboxes. You notice you're not coding. I can say that this is required or that it's read-only. Can I print this? Can I search by it? Should I hide it? Do I want a large text box? But again, it's just simple checkboxes. I'm not being prompted for code or database jargon. It's very simple for me to do that. So let's just say I want that to be required. You'll notice it puts a little red asterisk next to it here. And let's say I also want that to be my second tab in the group. So by doing that, when I go back to the interface after I publish, I will now have a tab inserted between my main information and my financial tab. Now the way this works is it all kind of works offline. You make those changes offline. Once they're done, you go through and you right-click the solution and you publish. Again, you could have multiple solutions. I won't bore you with what all these mean, but essentially you can right-click and at some point publish that. And once you do that, all the changes that you have defined would then move over into that environment. So that's one way, adding new fields, new tabs of information. It gets a little more complicated if you wanted to. I could add new business logic and other rules and so forth. I won't intimidate you with those, but just suffice it to say that this tool goes as deep as you want it to go. Let's say there's something that we hadn't envisioned. Let's just say you're in a particular industry, you're in the flooring industry, and you need a screen that captures a floor plan or floor dimensions. Maybe the goal is that your company goes out and takes some measurements, or you're giving quotes. But let's use quotes. Perhaps that's a better example. So what I'll do is I'll create an entirely new screen of information, and I'm going to call this my flooring quote. Again, theoretical example of somebody using UA for the flooring industry, and we want to be able to provide quotes to our customers. I'm going to just go through some fields here. I won't bore you with that. There's other little wizards and things that we could do to further automate this. So for now, I'll just hit finish. Now, what's going to happen is the system is going to create that. It thinks for a few moments, and it's basically creating an architecture to build something called a flooring quote. You'll notice it's now added to my tree, and now I have full control over it. So now I'll go through and I'll create the basic information that I want. So I might want to have a description. I'll call this description, and I'll just put that there. And now what I'll need to do is just identify what do we want to capture about a quote. One of the things we need is, okay, well, which customer is this for? So that's going to be a linked field, and it's going to link up to something called customers, which is one of my list. So I'll add that, and I'll continue. And then let's just use some other simple examples. Let's just say we want to have the installation amount, and that's going to be currency field. And then we're going to have materials amount, which is going to be another currency field. And let's just add another field called date requested, which is what the customer is asking us to do the installation. And I'll have the default to the date. That's great. So there we go. So what I've basically done is, in just a matter of minutes, while I'm also describing it to you, created an entirely new screen within the system. Now I could add that to my menuing structure and other things using the tool, but the basic thing I wanted to show you here is how, with just a few clicks and a couple hours well spent, you can take UA and extend it as far as you want to go. It's important to note that by using this tool, you can create entirely new forms of functionality, but it's very important to remember that you're not going to break any existing accounting processes within UA, so you can customize without worries. And then also know that when UA comes up with a new version, and since your changes are memorialized using this tool, that you'll be able to upgrade without any issue and still have the best of your changes kind of morph together into a single solution.